Alright, what's going on, everybody? So, Redo of Healer, that came out last week. I got a chance to see the first episode. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to do a review on it, and I really wanted to wait until like the third or fourth episode to kind of do a first impressions on the series. But after watching the second episode, I don't think I'm going to be watching this anymore. I wanted to talk about this series, or at least about what I've seen so far, because I'll be honest with you guys, after watching this second episode, it really stuck with me throughout the day. It really stuck in my mind throughout the day to the point where I thought that I should just go ahead and do a video about this. Now, I should go ahead and say a few things before I kind of get into this video. So first of all, please watch this entire video. Please do. Don't just get mad at one or two things that I say and just hit the dislike button, please. And then also, I should say this. This anime was on my most anticipated list when I did that video a while back. I want to say like a few weeks ago. This was one of those anime that was on the list because the plot was interesting. For those of y'all that don't know what Redo of Healer is about, it's essentially about a healer that's in a party that unfortunately the people in his party mistreated him, and so he learns this powerful type of magic that allows him to essentially relive his life, and he's basically taking revenge on the people that wronged him. That's an interesting premise. And then they also in that first episode, they introduce like the way that healing works in this is very unique. Like, I like some of the stuff that they set up in the first episode, but overall, from what I've seen these first couple of episodes, I would say that this show feels very indulgent. I know some of y'all might disagree with that, but I really think it is. It's very self-indulgent. Well, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. It's very self-indulgent. And honestly, and I should also say this, because coming into this, I did not read the light novel. I didn't read no manga. I didn't know anything about this outside of the plot. That's the only thing I knew. Now, before the winter anime season started, I watched. So here's the thing. I watched Gigux. I know a lot of y'all know this guy. I watched Gigux, his Twitch stream, where he was talking about some of the he's basically going through all of the anime that was going to be coming out for the winter season, and he got to this show, and he talked about how the character designs are similar to what you would see in a hentai, and I should have knew something was up. I should have known something was up. Like, I knew that the show, like, I had an inkling that the show was gonna get like crazy because of how people were talking about it online, but I did not know like I just didn't know it was gonna get like this crazy like it did in this episode. And like I said, I want to make it clear that it's like I'm not I'm not necessarily angry. I'm not necessarily upset, and it's as far as how I'm feeling right now about this. I'm kind of questioning not necessarily why this exists, and I'm not just talking about the anime itself. I'm talking about the anime, the manga, and the light novel, but more so like what purpose does it serve? Here's the thing, and I've been thinking about this all day. Like I said, this episode and just this series has stuck in my head all day. And it's funny because I watched a very short video that somebody made about Redo of Healer, about this anime, and essentially what he was saying was that, yeah, this was the way that this was made. It's like, yeah, this was pretty much made like it's pretty much a money maker. Like there really isn't much to it, and I don't want to say that definitively, but it really doesn't seem to be much to it other than like the hook is essentially revenge porn. It feels like it really is hentai. Honestly, if I really had to describe this, if I really had to describe this to somebody off the street, I would say that it's essentially fantasy code geass revenge porn. That's kind of what I got out of it. It's fantasy It's Fantasy Code Geass Revenge Porn. I literally, so here's the thing. I watched both of the episodes. Today, like, somebody is very bold here on YouTube. I'm not gonna shout out who he is. I'm not even gonna say his channel name because I don't want to get him in trouble and I don't want to start anything with anybody. And I want to make it clear, like, I'm not trying to what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not trying to demonize anyone for watching this. I should say this also. I'm not trying to demonize anybody for watching this, but I do question cuz so like here so let me back up. Let me talk about the fact that somebody's upload so obviously somebody's uploading this. I won't say who, but somebody's uploading the uncensored version to YouTube. I ain't gonna call them out, but I've seen the uncensored version, right? To be more precise, I've seen bits and pieces of the uncensored version of both of the episodes that are out now. I didn't want to watch all of the episodes uncensored simply because I couldn't stomach parts of it, especially this week's episode. I sat there and I watched the part where, and let me just say this, I'm gonna have to censor a lot of what I say here because make no mistake, this show is very graphic, and it's to the point where, for those of y'all that don't know, there are three different versions of this show. I should have actually said that at first. There are three different versions of this show. There is the censored version that is on. There's a censored version that's on HIDIVE. I'm not sure where this person that uploaded it on YouTube is getting the uncensored version, and then there's another version. So there's three different versions. And as far as like the censorship goes on this, so I guess I can also touch on that. They do kind of go overboard with the censorship as far as the censored version goes. They kind of do go overboard with it because there are points in time where like they just straight up black out the entire freaking screen. They essentially just black out the entire screen sometimes, and then sometimes they just like there's a point in this episode where, and I should say spoilers for the first two episodes. I probably won't talk about every single little detail because I'm just going to be talking about what is necessary for me to just kind of just the stuff that I wanted to discuss. So I won't go into probably like every little thing, but spoilers. But there's a point where our main character Freya. Wait, no, wait, hold on. Let me just make sure. I mean, not Freya. Excuse me. Kiaru, our main character Kiaru, he breaks Flair's fingers, right? And there's a point where he's like messing up her fingers, and they even black that out. I don't think that they like. I do get some of the censorship. I should say this. I get some of the censorship, like censoring out the rape scenes and stuff like that. Censoring out the rape scenes, like I totally get it. I totally get that. I'm all for that. I know some people wouldn't like it, and we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about that in a second, right? But I get some of the censorship, but they do kind of go overboard with some of the censorship, based off of what I've seen in the first two episodes. Because like I said, there's points of times where they just like completely just black out everything, which I don't think is necessary. But I guess I can talk about this now. Since I mentioned the whole rape scene and stuff, there's especially episode two. This is essentially like straight up after watching the second episode uncensored. I would have to say that, man, this second episode is literally rape the episode, bruh. This After watching this uncensored, I'm just like, this show doesn't belong on HIDIVE. It doesn't belong on HIDIVE. It doesn't belong on Funimation. It doesn't belong on Crunchyroll. It doesn't belong on Netflix. This belongs on Pornhub. This belongs on some porn site, bruh. Like, let's keep it 100, man. This, like, I have to be real with myself, man. Because here's the thing. Little side story. Little side story from, I believe, last week. So, last week, I think I was making a salad or something. I was getting ready to eat dinner. And my parents, I think it was my mom. She was watching some show on Netflix. I think it's something called Strike Back or whatever. But basically, like me and my father, we pointed out the fact that, with these Hollywood productions, they go overboard with like the sex and everything. It's to the point where like it's very graphic, to the point where it's like, are y'all trying to make a porno or are y'all trying to tell a story? And that's kind of a little bit of how I feel about redo of Healer. Because here's the thing: there's nothing wrong with a revenge story. As I said before, the plot for this was something that sounded interesting. There's nothing wrong with a revenge fantasy story. That's cool. That's something that we haven't seen in terms of a anime. That's something we haven't seen. We've seen isekai over and over and over. We've seen all these different types of fantasy anime out there that we get every season. We don't get to see a revenge fantasy anime. That's cool. That's a cool premise. But this is very self-indulgent. It's I struggle to find the point. I struggle to find the point in it. Because here's the thing, and some of you guys might disagree with me on this, but I feel like with the best revenge stories out there, they either serve as a cautionary tale, or in some way, they like their purpose is to essentially it's supposed to be satisfying. It's supposed to be satisfying to the audience. And I'm sitting here watching this stuff, and I'm like, what satisfaction am I supposed to be getting? What type of sick satisfaction am I supposed to be getting by watching this character be raped, be abused like this? And I know some of you guys might be thinking, oh, well, you missed the point. Because here's the thing. Because she, due to her actions, due to her being a piece of crap, she ended up getting, because keep in mind what happens in the episode, Kiyaru, he ends up getting raped by men, used by women, because they're all trying to get experience from him. And then he's getting abused by her. He's being treated like less than human. He's being treated like a dog. So you got to keep that in mind. And he says himself, well, he doesn't say it, but like his inner monologue or whatever. He's just like, yeah, I lost my identity because of the drugs, because she got him hooked on drugs. And so he did the same thing back to her. He did essentially the same thing back to her. He raped her. He abused her. He took her, by the end of the episode, he takes her identity. He takes her identity away. But then he goes a step further and essentially gives her this false narrative that she is his assistant and continues to have sex with her. Like, he goes above and beyond. And at a certain point, because I was thinking about this earlier, I'm like, so there has to be a reason other than a bunch of nudity and sex and rape and all this other crap, other than for shock value, for this light novel, for this manga to have been successful, for this to be good enough to be a anime. Because I've seen videos out there, and I've seen people out there saying that this shouldn't be an anime, that this should not be an anime. And after watching these first two episodes, I'm like, yeah, this shouldn't be an anime. This is essentially hentai. This is essentially porn with a plot. This is essentially porn with a plot, and that's not what I sign up for, not at all. I wanted a good revenge story, and there's elements, like I said, I mentioned earlier, there's stuff that I see here outside of all this foolishness. I'm gonna call it what it is. Outside of this stuff that only appeals to degenerates. I'm sorry, because what sick pleasure do you get out of watching something like this? A character getting raped and abused and stuff. Because here's the thing. I can see if there was some type of profound message to this, and perhaps there is. Perhaps there is by the end of the story, because I haven't read the light novel. I have not read the manga. But it's like what I said earlier. You either have to satisfy some type of, you know, like it has to be satisfying on some level to the audience, or it has to at least serve as a cautionary tale or something. And I don't see any any freaking, you know, I don't see any purpose for something like this. I really don't. And like I said before, like I'm not angry. I might sound angry, but I assure you I'm not. But this rant is coming out of just, I don't know. It's just coming out of just me being confused as to why. I just like this episode, these two episodes. Like after watching this, I'm just asking myself why. I want to know why this exists. Because what type of sick pleasure? Because here's the thing. Here's the thing. I've gone on another site and I've like read the comments and stuff, and people were saying, people were saying stuff like, you need to watch it uncensored. You're missing out on a lot. And I watched the second episode uncensored, and I'm like, the only thing I'm missing out on is essentially these characters performing these disgusting, vile acts. If I wanted to see stuff like that, I'd just go on these dark websites. I'd go on hentai and porn websites. I didn't come here for that. I came here for a story. I came here for the story, for characters, for freaking stuff you're supposed to come to an anime for. And I did not get that. I didn't really get that with today's episode. I got a little bit of that with last week's episode, granted. And there was some stuff that I liked. But all in all, because even with last week's episode, we had the whole thing with the maids. The maids would come in when Kiaru is about to go to bed. And when Kiaru's about to go to bed, the maids would come in and have sex with them. Because in this world, they get experience. You can gain experience by having sex, apparently. And this just goes back to me saying, that this is a very self-indulgent series. It really feels like the creator of the series watched a bunch of porn, and he just decided to like replicate it and just put a plot around it. And here's the thing, because I don't think I mentioned this yet, but there was the official Twitter account, they put out a content warning, right? They put this out, I want to say it was either last week or week before last, but they basically put out a content warning. Basically, they were trying to cover their butt, man. That's essentially what they were doing. It read something like, this program is fiction. It bears no relation to any person or organization. Furthermore, this content is not made to endorse any specific way of thinking or belief or whatever. But that just goes back to, what was the purpose of this? What's the purpose of this? There has to be a reason as to, when you're making a story, there has to be, I'm not saying you have to say something profound, but with something like this, with the type of subject matter and the type of stuff, the type of stuff that they have in here, you have to be saying something. Like, even as much crap as I give, and I know this is video games, but as much crap as we gave, as a lot of people gave The Last of Us, right? As much crap as people gave The Last of Us Part 2 and the whole revenge is bad thing, at least they were trying to put a message out there. I mean, yes, it's the most simple it's the most simple thing in the world, but at least they were trying to do something with their story. It might have been a bad story. You might have not liked it. You might like it. Who knows? But they were trying to do something with it. Here, I don't know what, like, at the end of the day, based on what I'm seeing, I don't know what they're going to be doing with this. I don't know what's the point. Because it doesn't seem like, and perhaps if the author was smart enough, right? Because if the author is smart enough, then maybe he does have a message. Maybe he does have some type of character growth for our main protagonist. Because I was thinking about this earlier. Like, there is no hero in this. There is no hero. I can't get behind some dude that is essentially, no matter how vile she treated you, I really can't get behind some main character that essentially rapes and messes up and messes up Flair like that. Like, I can't get behind that. So who's the hero in the story? It's not Flair. It's not Kiaru. The only decent human beings that we've seen in this show so far is the the woman that has raised Kiaru, and the chick that he healed last week, whose name I can't remember. Like those seem to be the two decent people out of this whole entire show. There is no hero. There is no hero. You can say Flair and everybody else is like the antagonist. I don't even want to call this man a protagonist. I mean, he's dude. There's no hero. And what's so and what could be like what they could do is essentially try to tackle this whole thing of how you know how much is too much, right? How much is too much? When are you taking things too far? When like am I the villain now? Like he could have this main character. He could have Kiaru essentially question himself, but I don't even know if that's gonna be the case. He can essentially have this character grow, but I don't even know if he's gonna even put that much effort. I don't even know if the author put that much effort into this work. And I know some of you guys might be thinking, well, that's why you gotta watch the show. I'm sorry, I can't. I can't after this. I can't after watching what I've seen today. I can't after watching what I've seen today. I don't have faith enough in. I really don't have faith enough in the source material and in this anime because it's really just judging off of what I've seen. This seems like something that's really just going for shock value. It's really going for shock value, and it works in spots just to name one, just to kind of name one instance, right? The part where Kiaru he breaks her fingers, right? That's hard to watch, like stuff like that. Okay, that's cool, but then you took it a step too far. You took it a step too far. And I mentioned this before, where like people were making comments like, this show is gonna make blue hair Twitter angry and stuff like that. And I even mentioned it in my video that I did. And I'm like, yeah, if there was someone getting angry over this, I can honestly I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Honestly, wouldn't blame you. Like, yes, we know it's a fictional work. Like, we know this is a piece of fiction. I mean, heck, the freaking official Twitter account was to make sure that you know that we are not down. Like, we ain't down with this. Like, we don't support rape and all this other stuff. But it's like this type of material. I don't see what it. I just don't see the point. I told myself I wasn't gonna say this, but I'm gonna say it. It seems pointless. It seems pointless. I mean, yes, there's a goal. Like the character has a goal. It's revenge. He wants the revenge on his party. Cool. But honestly, outside of that, I don't know, man. I don't know. This right here is not for me, and that's cool if it's for you. Like, I honestly don't want to demonize anybody for watching this, but it does bother me when people say things like, "Oh, you need to watch the uncensored version because you're missing out on stuff." And all I'm missing out on is seeing someone graphically get raped and get messed up like this. And it's just pointless stuff. Like, oh, anime characters having sex. If you guys want to see that so badly, go to Pornhub. Go to some porn website. Go to some hentai website. Guys, there's stuff for that. We don't, I can't speak for everybody, but I don't watch anime for that. I'm here to watch a story unfold because I have better things to do than to watch trash. And honestly, like I said, the plot was interesting. There's stuff in there that is worth, appreciating, but then there's a lot of crap from what I've seen. Like, I'll attempt to describe two things that happened in this episode, just to support my claim that this is very self-indulgent. And I'll try to keep it PG-13, right? So there's a point where Kiaru is in that scene where he's like going to rape Flair. And I should point this out that in the censored version, it's so bad in the censored version that for let's say around 30, maybe 40 seconds, they don't show a gosh darn thing. What they do, they show the wall. They show like this wall, and then it like pans down. It like pans either up or down or whatever for like 20 or 30 seconds. No dialogue, no nothing. This show, you're honestly not really getting all of the like. I get it. I get the other side of the argument where it's like, oh, you're not getting the whole experience if you don't watch it uncensored. If you don't watch it, if you're only watching the censored version, but if you watch the uncensored version, you're basically watching porn, and I'm not down for that. I'm not down for that. But like I said, here are just two things, two examples, right? The first one is Kiaru. He heals. God, I'm gonna feel very weird. Okay, first of all, pause me saying this. He heals his Johnson to make it bigger, then he smacks her with it. And then there's another part that they cut out where Flair essentially sits down on the ground, or on the floor rather, and she starts pleasuring herself right in front of him. And there's another part, and I should say like all of this is technically fan service, but I thought that this was like this is kind of odd the way that they placed this part where like I'm talking about the part where like she begs, like she gets down on the ground and she like begs him because at a certain point he takes this rod and he puts it in the fire and he's like, do you want this rod or do you want my rod? And then she begs because she does not want to get burned. So she sits down on the floor and begs him. And in the shot, it's clearly to the point where you're supposed to be focusing on her butt. And it was like, how are you having fan service in the middle of this high tension moment? But those are just some of the examples to where I'm saying this is very self indulgent. Like it's nothing, like I got nothing out of this episode other than the dude, like I get it. The whole point is revenge. I get it. Don't worry guys, I didn't miss it. The whole point of the show, the whole point of the episode, like I didn't miss it. It didn't fly over my head. But man, it's honestly not, this honestly isn't worth it honestly isn't worth watching to me. It really isn't. I'm very disappointed. Well, not really disappointed. I guess you could say I'm disappointed. But then again, like I said, I just didn't know what to expect going into this. I mean, I expected that things were gonna get wild, but I was expecting a bit more nuance, a bit more substance because there really isn't much here, especially in this episode. But I know, like I said, I know some of you guys are gonna really, hit the dislike button, get angry. But I'm gonna be real with y'all, and I hate the call. Like I said, I don't really want to demonize anybody, but if y'all are looking forward to just watching people get raped and get abused and crap like that, like I'm all for characters getting revenge and their just desserts and having this satisfaction of getting back at another character. But at a certain point, there's a line, and I believe that the show has crossed it. And it especially hurts when there's nothing, when there doesn't seem to be, I should say, at this point in the story, it doesn't seem to be, and I know this is just the second episode, but listen, it doesn't really seem to be a point. Now, in the comment section, y'all can tell me very nicely, if I'm wrong, if there's certain things that happen later on where the character changes, where there's just more of a redemption arc or something like that. I don't know how you redeem a character like that, and maybe that's something they play around with. Maybe you play around with the fact that is Kiaru redeemable? Are these characters redeemable? I mean, what he does at the end of the episode, he gives Flair a fresh start by giving her a new name. He gives himself a new name. He's given them both he gives them both a fresh start, and it's like, can they be redeemable? That's something like if they can play around, if the author could play around with that sort of stuff, that'd be cool to see. But I just won't be sticking around to see it, man. I'm very, like I said, I'm very disappointed in this. I'm not angry, but I'm kind of disappointed, just based off of what I saw. So that was my thoughts on the first two episodes. Thank you guys for watching. Whether you dislike the video, get angry at me, get mad, whatever. But it is what it is. That's kind of what I thought about this week's episode, about both of these episodes. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. I'm out of here. Peace.